Hi, how are you? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're breathing in the beautiful chi and prana energy. I hope you're being aware of how you're progressing, of how you're seeing things, of getting to know yourself, of getting to know how you can be your best friend and how you can be your worst enemy. These are all critical to laying the foundation. And what I'm going to do today is talk more about the foundation, about the self that can receive the higher energies and be empowered with those and be in union with those. It's all about providing a base. And I'd say one of the first things is self-awareness. Self-awareness is that we are doing things that we're not aware of. It's in our unconscious. We want to do things, but we have resistance. We're finding that we have blocks. We don't want to do it. We have fears that come up and all those things. Well, self-awareness is discovering. It's self-discovering what it is within ourselves that is sabotaging ourselves. It's sabotaging what we really want. You know, we can envision wonderful things to ourselves. We want this positive element and that positive element. We want to be this way. We want to project a certain way. So we read about that. How can we be the perfect person? But then a lot of times there's things within us that just don't really allow that to be carried out. It's almost like there's a force that's pulling us back as we're trying to move forward. And a lot of the spiritual path and being able to become not just your better self, but who you are, your true self, which is empowered and connected to the whole universe, actually. That might seem really, really huge in terms of, how do you do that? But that's a reality. Many people that have, reached the state of awakening are able to open up to that. So a lot of it is like doing the nitty gritty, doing the homework, doing the foundation work, and sometimes that's not so glamorous as what you're really wanting to create, but it's like being able to be aware of what is going on, taking a record, keeping a record of what's going on in your life, where you're shining your light and where you're just kind of sabotaging yourself. You get negative things you might not like and whatnot. This is an exploration of what's going on inside. And for the most part, in fact, almost all the time, these sabotaging elements, these elements that hold you back and bring you down and don't allow you to progress, are beliefs that you have buried inside. They're beliefs that you just don't want to look at because they're not who you feel is you. You see yourself in the ideal state sometimes, and you try to project that, but inside you might not feel that at all. And there's such a thing as smiling and doing a real positive appearance that provides a positive element to your progress in some ways, but in some ways it can make you feel like you're an imposter, and there's something inside of you that's not true, and so you feel like you're wearing a mask, you're wearing a public persona mask, but part of you feels like that's not true, and that that can be an element that you feel bad, and it can make you feel bad in a way that you don't want to even look at. So self-awareness is, first of all, seeing yourself as who you really are. Who you really are is a part of the universe, a part of an incredible. We're wonderful. We're magnificent creatures. But it's hard to see that because of all the actions, the thoughts, emotions that are not even aligned to that. So what we want to do is basically see where it is inside of us, where we have adapted beliefs that aren't even ours. Maybe somebody told us that we were no good, or there's something wrong with us, or how could we be the way we are, whatever, or just reject us. And we took that personally. That's just the process of growing up. And that goes back into our unconscious mind where it just dwells, it sits there. And then we're trying to push stuff on top of it. And we're saying, I'm thinking positive thoughts. I'm only going to focus on that. And that has a place. But a lot of times that subconscious is, it kind of knows it's not true. It says, you fake, you phony. This is this is who I am. Something that somebody told me that I believe to be true. So part of the journey is finding and being aware of what all that stuff is. It's like all the bad programs that were put inside of us that we could never see the magnificence. It shines sometimes, but for the fullness of the magnificence of who you are couldn't come out because there were forces that were basically sabotaging and not allowing that to come into bloom. And so part of this is really going inside and seeing what our beliefs are. And a lot of times the way you find this is if you're open, you find thoughts. You might find an inner voice that says something. And you might not, that's not me, I don't want to, that's like an enemy, but it's really telling you something. It could be that you have feelings of fear about a certain thing, or dread about facing something. Or it might be that you're getting a response from your outside environment and you feel like, I'm this ideal person. How could they be responding? But the principle in what the great masters say is that we create all of this, that we create the reactions we want and don't want. And a lot of times the reactions that we don't want are coming from something inside of us that really we in some ways weren't responsible for. We adapted, we heard, we believed. These were big people, these were our gods in a way, the parents and the adults. And they basically gave us messages that really held us back. Or maybe they were giving us nothing but positive messages, but there wasn't a balance there. So we took those positive messages and went overboard with it and got negative messages from maybe our actions or the results that we were creating. There's a lot there, and it's a lot to uncover, but it's very, very valuable to be able to have awareness and be able to know what's going on in us. And one way is to keep a journal. In this journal, you can show what you did yesterday, what occurrences happened, what feedback you got, what were feelings that you liked and didn't like inside, things that that you become aware of what's happening to you on the inside. And it's not that you want to just be totally inside and whatnot and not be out in the world, but you want to realize what's happening out in the world and be able to be in touch with what's going on in your inner world. And constantly remind yourself that there's an end result here. And the end result is peace and joy, is basically stepping into a world where you're open, you know yourself, you're not, it could be, for instance, that there's higher beings that are sending you light and love and you can't take it because somewhere inside you feel unlovable. Well, you might have somebody that loves you and you let's say in a relationship, and you just walk away from that. It doesn't, something came up, you feel fear, you feel whatever, and you just wanted to avoid it. But if you look at that, this is something maybe you've always wanted. And that's just an example of the inner world and how that plays in terms of how we live in the outer world, how it holds us back, how it undermines our happiness. And ultimately, you want to find joy and peace and happiness. You want to be able to dwell in that place. And that place requires that you really know yourself. You know what you're doing that undermines and you could call it the negative self. They could call it the shadow self. The self that really holds you back. The self that without awareness of it has power. With awareness, you have to have a lot of courage when you have awareness because you see things that you don't want to see. And it might be very painful to see. But also realize that you only can move through this stuff and open up and heal it by being aware of it. And you can do that yourself. You can do it with a therapist, a good therapist, but also you can do so much working on yourself. So this is a big element. It's sort of a beginning step of being aware of yourself, being aware of what you're feeling, being aware of what's going on inside of you, and taking ownership of that. Changing from they did this to me and they did that to me and I feel terrible because of them. I had a problem. I had an accident. I hit somebody in the car, whatever, and it's a bad day. And these are big influences, I realize. But there's a place where it's possible that you can realize that it is us, it is ourselves that are reacting in a way that makes those events either tolerable or manageable or even okay to being horrific and being a horrible situation and being something that just affects your day, your week, or whatever. And this is the beginning of managing your energy, managing your world that you're creating and taking ownership. And I'm going to leave it, and we'll be back on this in a moment.